Welcome into The Future is Female. Gabby Ducharme here with my co-host Nicole Pinter. We have a very special guest today, Coach Herm Edwards. Coach, thank you so much for making the time to sit down with us.
It's my pleasure. I'm back in the studio. It's kind of familiar with me. I always just sat on the end too, so you guys got the right seat for me.
And we are also incredibly honored. I guess just to start off with, we just want to know, how do you believe that your dynamic as a coach now in 2019 has changed since you first started coaching in the 1980s?
Well, I think athletes are the same, whether it's in the 80s, the 70s, 2000 era. The information, how they gather information now and how they view things is quite different. And the people in the world that we live in today, there's a tablet. They live on a tablet. They live with a picture in front of their face. But they're all in search for the same thing, whether it's in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, 2000, knowledge. There's always a search for knowledge. And so with players in any era, how can you better them? You cannot give them talent. God gives them talent, you give them knowledge. It's like you young ladies. I mean, you're in search for knowledge because this is what you do. And when you stop searching for knowledge, you gain no advantage, because people with knowledge have the ability to gain advantage. And so you look for knowledge every day. Every day you walk in this room, you should always be searching for something to do things a little bit different. That's important.
I mean, you talk about how important knowledge is, but what about your relationship with your players and your fellow coaches? Obviously, it was 30, 40 years ago when you started coaching. How has that changed?
Well, it hasn't changed. It's about trust. And I think anytime you sit in a leadership position, we are taught at a very young age to respect the person with the title, right? But it's not the title so much, it's the person behind the title. Do you respect he or she? You gotta earn that. It's called trust. You gotta earn people's trust. When I took the job, the first thing I asked our football team, as well as the coaching staff, I've never coached any of these guys. Didn't know these players. Let me earn your trust. I gotta earn your trust. I'm the head coach and telling them I have to earn your trust. It's important.
So going off of relationships, now you coached Kevin Maway on New York Jets back in the early 2000s, and now he's on your staff as an offensive analyst. So what's it like to be back with him?
Well, a lot of fun. His daughter Abigail, when we were in New York, was about 2 years old. She's now here at this university. She's a swimmer. She babysits my daughter. So how does that even look, right? But I think when you have a guy like Kevin Maway, the knowledge, the experience he brings as a coach to young players, I mean, it's invaluable. He sits in meeting rooms with the offensive line coach. He wants to be a coach. And you think a guy in the Hall of Fame is an analyst right now, but he's willing to work his way up the ladder, which we all have to start somewhere. You don't just all of a sudden get to be the president of the company because you want to be the president. You have to start somewhere. And so he is willing to do that, and it says a lot about him as a man, and it's good for me because he can actually tell coaches on our staff what I'm thinking before anything's said. He said, don't ask him that because he's probably going to say no, because I've seen that before, so that's good.
I mean, you talk about starting from the bottom, you talk about working your way up the ladder. That's what journalism students are doing at this school. What do you believe is the key for those students to really make their mark in the industry if they're starting from a place like this?
What makes you different from everyone else that sits here? There has to be a uniqueness. Let's say during a rehearsal, the story is ASU football. They win or lose, whatever it may be. How are you going to tell the story different than the other 10 people? I mean, to me, that's the key to this. It's not so much the information that you're about to give people. How do you project it? What story can you tell that is going to be different from the next two young ladies that sit here? We're all going to tell, we all have the same information. How is your story going to differ to the viewer? How is the viewer going to say, you know what? When she says, boy, I really like listening to her because I'm learning something from her. That's what I learned as an analyst, as a person on television, is when my face stepped on the screen, if someone was in a room, they're going, turn it up. I want to hear coach. He's going to have a little bit different perspective than the other 10 guys that are telling the same story. And once you can do that, you connect to the viewer, and that's what you have to do.
It's about finishing off here with, now you're going to be teaching here at Cronkite a little bit as sort of a guest speaker in the spring. How excited are you to watch young journalists grow and sort of see maybe a little of yourself in them?
Well, we're very excited because it's funny. Every journalist is a little bit different. And the thing that I spoke on today is that you have to be an expert at what you do. You really do. You have to be invested in this, invested in gaining knowledge every day. And whatever you're covering, knowing that at the end, how do I tell the story? Because you're storytellers, believe it or not. Now, your factual stories, not fictional, but factional stories of people see things on television. They see what's just taking place. They want to know why it happened. When you can tell them why it happened, they're going to tune into what you're saying. Because you've given them something that they can see it, but why did it happen? And that's where the knowledge and the experience and the hard work of learning the job and learning the sports that you're covering is critical. Because once you can give people knowledge, and you don't have to be an athlete, you don't. Knowledge is free. How you obtain it and how you go about doing it is important, because then the viewer looks at you and says, you know what, when they speak, they're knowledgeable on the subject. Athletes, coaches know the people that are knowledgeable in covering sports. There's certain ones you go, I'm listening to that person, other ones you go, and paying attention to them. It's kind of funny. Works that way.
Funny how it is sometimes.
Yeah, it works that way. It's the truth. It really works that way. I mean, there's certain people that come on that you can go, I'm gonna listen to this guy. Or I'm not listening to him. Because it doesn't make any sense. Right? So you have to be very, very knowledgeable of what you do. You have to take the time to do the research. Right? You're not a fan. You have to take yourself out of the fan chair and say, I'm not a fan. I'm actually an expert at covering this sport. And when people feel that come over the airwaves, they go, this young lady is invested in this. When I hear her speak, wow, I'm learning something. It's important.
You talk about the time, you talk about the investment that it took to get to your level. Coach, we can only hope that someday we will also be at that level. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us here at Blaze Radio. For everyone in the studio, and of course for Nicole and myself, we are the Future is Female. Thank you so much, Coach Herm Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.